We're heading into the peak home selling season for 2024 on the Oregon coast. In this video, we're going to cover some of the data, look at what's transpired so far, maybe project out what we would expect to happen for the rest of this year. If you're thinking about buying a home along the Oregon coast in 2024, you won't want to miss this video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, Living on the Oregon Coast. I am your host, Seth Marchant, licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon and Washington. As I mentioned, I'm going to quickly take you through some of the stats. I'm not going to show you every single stat and every single data point in here. A little bit boring, but if you do want to see every single data point, just reply to this video and I will share a link. So what's the important stuff that we're looking at? What's going to tell us what's happened and what to expect for the market? The biggest thing we look at, and there's a reason why you start with this, is the inventory in months. As you can see, this number has finally started to build up. This is what we've all been waiting for, is more inventory for buyers that will bring us more of a balanced market. Because probably, as you know, even if you're not in the market, you've probably seen the headlines over the last couple of years. It's been a seller's market. Home values have been going up dramatically, and that is largely due in part because there's much more demand than there is supply, and there isn't really a mechanism or anything that we foresee right now that's really going to increase supply dramatically. So kind of what we've been seeing over the months and quarters and years is it's slowly ticking up. And right around 6 months that you saw here actually in March is what they say is kind of getting towards a balanced market, meaning the buyer doesn't necessarily have leverage in the transaction or the seller doesn't necessarily have leverage in the transaction. So right now in 2024, mid-2024, just based on inventory in months, we are really about as balanced of a market as we've seen in about the past 3 years or so. Big number to pay attention to is inventory time on market, days on market, 79 days. That's how long homes are sitting on the market. That's a number that a lot of people use to determine how competitive the market is. And so we look at these numbers compared to the previous month and previous year, and we can see that total time on market over the previous month is slightly down. Now, that is normal for this time of the year because the Oregon coast is so seasonal. That's going to be true for a lot of the country, of course. The real estate market picks up in the summertime when school's out and people are moving. People don't like to move in the rain, especially in Oregon. So we do typically expect the real estate market to pick up and a lot of sellers to wait until this time of the year, till springtime, to list their home. So you typically see inventory tick up around this time of the year. But in previous years, a lot of what's impacted inventory has been interest rates. And we've seen interest rates kind of spike every time around the fall for the last couple of years. So we've seen inventory actually start to build up around the fall and even into the winter time. Whereas historically that might not be the case. So real quick, looking at rates here, going back to 2020, this is where you're getting into the threes and even in some cases into the twos, even for the 30-year. If we look back to the beginning of this year, we can see that rates were actually, for the 15-year, under 6 and right around mid-6s for the 30-year. So this is December of 2023, just before the new year. Right around this time, the Fed had signaled that they were going to cut rates in 2024. So we expected this line to continue to go down. Most of us expected that. And if you watched my videos from a few months ago, I make these videos about every quarter. In the wintertime, I did predict a competitive spring market. But I predicted that based on rates being lower than they are right now. If you would have told me that rates were going to get close to the mid-7s, I would have predicted that the market would have been a lot less competitive than it is right now, because we are still seeing competition. We are still seeing multiple offers. And it's not actually what we've learned over the last couple of years. It's not so much the rate as it is the variation that we've seen in the rates, or what we call the rate shock. People that in the winter time, around this time, December, maybe thinking about buying a home in the springtime, well, they're calculating that based on 6.65. And when springtime comes around, they're looking at almost a full point higher than that, which if you've run a mortgage calculator and run the numbers, you know that 1% makes a big difference in your mortgage payment. So we've seen typically the market slow down anytime the rates start to go up. So it's not so, and then typically the market will pick back up a short time after people have had some time to adjust to those numbers, whether they are just making changes in their budget, how much they can afford, or just accepting that they're going to be spending a little bit more money on that mortgage payment. So with rates where they're at right now, you would normally expect the market to pick up in the springtime, the summertime, like I've talked about, but wouldn't expect it to pick up based on the rate shock that we've seen over the past couple of years. So a little bit surprising, the competition that we're seeing with inventory being as high as it is and with rates being as high as they are. There is something, though, I'll get to in just a moment in the data that makes the Oregon coast unique. But before I get to that, I want to point out too, with these numbers, sale price. Everybody always likes to look at sale price, average sale price, medium sale price, more so average sale price, which is up 4.1% month over month for the past year for the northern coastal counties. And it is down 5.8% year over year. So you look at this change over here, sale price change versus the previous 12 months, plus 0.2%. Now, I want to caution you that average sale prices are not home values. These things are correlated. Home values are determined by sale prices, but only by comparable homes, not by the entire market. And the entire market right now is being impacted by rates, and that's impacting what types of homes that people are buying. In other words, people are buying homes that aren't necessarily as large or aren't necessarily as expensive. Doesn't necessarily mean that home values are going down when you see the average sale price down 5.8% April 24 versus April of 2023. In general, home values are up about 1, 2, maybe 3%, just depending on the area. That's been true for about the last couple of years. Now, with all that being said, and again, anecdotally, we're still seeing multiple offer situations, but these numbers right here would indicate to us that this is about as good of a time for a buyer to have some leverage over the seller, which they have not had in recent years, or at least not much of anyways. And where are you looking at the competition? Where's the competition going to be the stiffest? And this is new too, if you've been following along with, I don't make these reports, somebody else makes these reports, somebody from the RMLS. And if you're watching, thank you for making these reports. I know you've commented before, and recently now we've noticed that we have these percentages here, which is very nice. So this kind of gives us just a rough idea with the percentages without having to do some math, where you're going to face the stiffest competition. On the northern Oregon coast, it's really 300 to about 700,000, maybe 400 to 600,000 is going to be a big bulk of where you might potentially bump into a multiple offer situation. Now, like I mentioned, I'm not going to cover all of these numbers, but there is one number in here that people oftentimes find interesting. Again, if you want to see this entire report, just comment below and I'll share a link with you. Average sold price change. So orange is 2024, green is last year, 23, blue is 2022. You can see here's the line right here for 0%. So right now, as it stands, the most recent data, April of 2024, right about 2.2, not quite, maybe 2.5% below the average sold price. So people are coming in below the average sold price change right now. Whereas if you see 2022, where the market was very, very competitive, at its peak in September of 2022, people were coming in 4% above. So what that tells you right now, just on average, the market is just a little bit less competitive than we've seen in recent years. And if you're looking at a home for sale online on Redfin or Zillow, Realtor.com, whatever website you like to use, and you see a home that's listed at a certain price, if that price is priced right, which a lot of homes are, you're going to expect that house to end up just a couple of points below its list price. And you can see in February of this year, almost 5%. So that was kind of the low for the past 3 years. Again, this is a graph that will kind of give you an idea of when is the time that you have the greatest chance of getting a good deal. This number, this graph right here will kind of give you an idea of when that is. And by the way, this is all broken down city by city. So again, if you want this report, you want to see this data city by city, just comment below. Moving along to Lane County, this is where Florence is. Florence is one of the most popular towns to retire along the Oregon coast. Just over 10,000 people there, maybe 15 if you count some of the surrounding towns like Dune City, and people in unincorporated areas. The most populous part of Lane County is going to be Eugene, which is right around here. This area, there's going to be a couple 100,000 people in this. So Florence is going to have maybe a 20th of the population that Lane County makes up. So these numbers aren't exactly going to represent Florence. You've probably heard me mention that before in the past. So, but people are very interested in Florence, of course. Like I said, it is one of the top places that people are looking, especially that watch this channel. We've sold a fair amount of houses in Florence. So I want to show you some numbers and just kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what to expect in Florence. These are numbers that I put together just based on sales data through our RMLS. And there's one important thing that I want to point out to you that makes the Oregon coast unique and a reason why people aren't necessarily always impacted by rates along the Oregon coast. Almost half of transactions, so 42 out of 81 transactions in the last 3 months in Florence were cash. And that's going to be about right for the entire Oregon coast. I would estimate that for every town, it's roughly somewhere near 50% cash. Whereas the rest of the country, or if you go to the valley in Oregon, Portland, Salem, Corvallis, Eugene, you're going to see cash transactions at like the low 20s, 20, 21, 22%, something like that. And why is that? There's a lot more retirees moving to the Oregon coast that have cash. So average sold prices kind of for the bulk of the homes sold in Florence, you're looking at getting close to like the mid 400s. Days on market, just about 2 months. Fairly balanced in Florence right now, not super competitive. I'm sure there's plenty of deals to be had in Florence as well. Douglas County, this is, so the most populous area, same thing with, it's just like Lane County in that all the population is over here. In places like Roseburg, but you do have one town, or at least one kind of larger town of Reedsport that sometimes people do ask about. So I want to show you some numbers for Reedsport. For all you Reedsport people here very quickly, not a whole lot going on in Reedsport, 16 transactions in the last 3 months. Again, half of those, right, exactly even, 50% at cash. One thing about Reedsport, inexpensive. One of the more inexpensive towns along the Oregon coast, maybe the most inexpensive along the Oregon coast. You can see your average sale prices here, kind of right around $300,000. Just below Douglas County, you're going to find Coos County, and Coos County is going to be the most populous place along the Oregon coast. That's where you're going to find North Bend and Coos Bay, about 25,000 people there. We can see new listings are up month over month by 30%. That's what you would expect. In kind of a normal market, you get that spring bump with people coming to the market hoping to get the most for their home. Also up 30% year over year, though, which is interesting. Pending sales and closed sales not quite matching that. So we did get inventory kind of building up, and we saw this. We're not seeing the spring bump that we would expect to typically see. And again, I think a lot of that is due to rates. There were a lot of people at the beginning of the year that predicted that there's been home sellers that have wanted to sell for the last couple of years, but have been waiting for rates to come back down. And there's people that are predicting that a lot of those home sellers were just going to bite the bullet and take their home equity and use that to buy down the rate. And there was just a lot of pent-up demand for home sellers to come to market that wanted to either retire, move somewhere else, or upsize, downsize, whatever it may be. But we haven't quite yet seen that happen in most places. But Coos County, new listings are about as high as we've seen anywhere. The thing about Coos County, too, like Reedsport, this county will be about the most inexpensive place that you're going to find along the Oregon coast. Average days on market, 63 days. And you can see that your competition is going to get a lot stiffer down here into the 200,000s and 300,000s and 400,000. So that's your average price points are going to be lower in Coos County. And where are you going to fall exactly as far as a price change? Well, April of this year, Coos County, right about 3%, right about negative 3%, so about 3% below, which would indicate a less competitive market. I will say anecdotally, because we have sold a fair amount of houses in Coos County over the past year or so, we still are running into a fair amount of competition in Coos County. All right, on to Curry County, and now look at that. That's as much inventory as you're going to see anywhere, I think, in Oregon, maybe with the exception of Eastern Oregon. Not too familiar with Eastern Oregon, but 9.3 months of inventory. That would definitely indicate that this is a buyer's market. Average days on market all the way up to 158 days. So tough going for the sellers out there in Curry County. You can see month over month days on market plus 80, up 80 days, but slightly down year over year. So not a whole lot's changed necessarily from the past year, even though inventory is up almost 50% from the past month. So, I mean, this is the type of bump that you typically expect to get coming into the springtime, is for inventory to jump like this. But again, rates have slowed a lot of people down. Although in Curry County, you've got tons of retirees, probably the most popular area on our channel for retirees. So a lot of these people, again, just not impacted by rates, because if they're selling, to move somewhere else, they're probably going to be working with cash. They don't care if rates are high. So that might be a reason why we kind of see this bump here in Curry County. And then competition, where are you going to see the most competition? Homes here aren't super expensive. Similar to Coos County, going to be a little less expensive. Roughly 200 to 600,000 is where you're going to face the most competition. And then where are people kind of landing? Average sold price change, negative 4% as of April of this year. Varied quite a bit, almost down to 8% in February of this year. So homes selling for quite a bit less than what they're listed for. Probably about as good a place as anywhere along the Oregon coast right now if you're looking to get a good deal. So I hope that helps you understand the real estate market a little bit better as far as what's transpired. Now, what do we expect for the rest of the year? Well, there's still a talk of rates going down. So if they do go down, we'll expect the market to pick up a little bit. Like I mentioned, in previous years, rates had historically kind of peaked around fall time, which made the inventory build up in the winter. We might peak this time closer to springtime and might start going down by fall time. So it might be early enough for some people that were maybe thinking about moving or listing their home that then change their mind. It might be enough time for some of those people to still change their mind, but most likely not. So what we'll probably expect is rates might go down. It sounds like they'll probably go down, and that might make the market a little bit more competitive. But most likely what we're going to expect is probably just not going to be enough time in the year for people to make that adjustment. So I'm going to expect a little bit more of the same, even if rates go down. So for the most part, some homes are still receiving multiple offers. It's specifically the homes that are really in those price points, the bulk of the transactions, homes that are move-in ready, homes that don't need anything. Those are the ones that are really receiving the most competition. But aside from that, now is about as good as any time for a buyer along the Oregon coast, and that'll probably be true throughout the year. I think even if rates do go down, there's going to be a lot of deals to be had in the wintertime of the season. So if you have questions about the real estate market, anything at all, if you want to take the next steps, I invite you to call, text, email. You can hit that QR code if you're watching from TV. If you want to see more videos about what it's like to eat, sleep, play, all the pros and cons, we've got over 100 videos on our channel all about the Oregon coast. We cover pretty much all of the towns along the Oregon coast. Make sure and subscribe to this channel. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Lets me know I'm doing a good job. And feel free, like I mentioned, to comment below if you want a link to one of these reports or anything else. We'll reply back. And until next time, take care, everyone.